This video continues our discussion of the play framework using Scala. In this video, I want to talk about how we get data from forms using post requests. So we saw how we could get data in using a GET request, and we have a page set up that will do that, but I want to do this using a post because, as we saw, GET requests are horrible for things like logins. I'm actually going to keep the same login page here. We're just going to have multiple forms on it. And to make this work better, I'm going to call this validate get, and for the routes, validate get. We already made the method validate login get. Now for this form, it's basically going to look the same. I think I mentioned this before. It'll make me happier to have line breaks in here. I'm not much of a stickler for the presentation of websites. I will let you deal with that, but there are some things that are nice to have. I want to use a post instead of a get. Now, in our routes file, everything we've done so far has been a get. If I want to use a post, it turns out it's not that hard to figure out what we do. We change the verb get to a post. Now, if you were writing full APIs, you could also have puts and deletes. Any verb that you can use for HTTP, we can handle here. Okay, so I want to post and validate. We'll call it validate post 1. That gives us some nice consistency in our naming. Controllers dot task list 1. Actually, we don't have this yet, but validate login post. Now it's really tempting to put username and password here. That would be nice. It won't work. Okay, it turns out that the stuff that goes here would have to be pulled out of the URL. And by going to a post, we are specifically making it so the data is not part of the URL. It is part of the body of the request that's being sent to us. Okay, and so we have to parse it out a bit differently when that happens. So when this gets submitted, it's going to come into our controller. We have this validate login get. We're instead going to have a validate login post. And I'm not going to have any arguments. I'll go ahead and not even bother putting parentheses. And an action. Okay, but I do need a username and a password, right? So to keep this happy, we'll just put an OK with an empty string in there. So how am I going to get my username and my password when they are not coming through as arguments? Well, as I said, they're encoded in the body. And in order to get the values that are encoded in the body, Play has a number of body parsers in it. Now, to get the body of our request, we actually need to need to have the request. We need to have data from it. So we have been calling action with an argument here. And if you're not that familiar with Scala syntax, you might not think this is an argument, but in Scala, it's a perfectly happy way to specify an argument. It's actually a pass by name argument. Action also has a form that takes, instead of just a pass by name argument that gives you back the result, it can also take a function that is the request to the result that we want. Okay. This request has additional information in it, including the body. So there is a body here that is the contents of whatever came over the wire, and it gets encoded for post requests. And so we actually need to decode it, and fortunately there are decoders that are kind of built into Play. You can see them listed here. The one we want is actually the first one here, as form URL encoded. Okay. And I'm going to store this inside of a variable. Let's say post vals equals. Now let's look at what this is. So this is an option of a map of a string to a sequence of string. It's kind of a complex type there. So let's parse it out. The option. Well, what if the request didn't have a body or a body that wasn't form URL encoded? If something goes wrong in here, what's it going to give us back? Well, it can't give us back what we're looking for. So it's the option part on the outside is for the possibility that this doesn't work. Okay. Inside of that is a map of strings to sequence of strings. So the first string, the keyword in the map, is actually the names of the fields. So username and password here are going to become the keywords for this map. And it's a sequence of string because you can have multiple values with the same name on them. We don't right now, so we only want the first element from each one. So how are we going to process this? Well, I want to process this by taking the post vals, and remember it's an option, so I'm going to map it so that I have something that isn't an option. And I'll map it through a nice little function where now this is the arguments. This is just the map of string. And at the end here, I'm going to call a get or else, because I'll either get the result of whatever that does, or I will have something else. And for right now, all we will do is we'll give back the string oops. Okay. In order for this to be happy, this needs to result in an OK or a redirect or whatever. Right now I just want to show that we can get these variables. So let's go with username equals args of username. Okay. And now we can hover over, look at the type here. Oh, I need to put quotes around this. That'll get rid of at least the error that had been there. Let me go ahead and put 3 question marks so this compiles so I can show you types. So this is a sequence of string. And as I said, well, we only have one username. So I'm going to go ahead and call .head on that. And so now this should be the username. I also want the password. It will be args of password .head. And just so that this compiles and we can see that it works, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to print out the username and the password. Much like we did before. The hope is this time we won't see it inside of the URL, but we can see that we have this information, and so then we can decide what we want to do with it. One step at a time. I've written a bit of stuff here. I've talked about a bit of stuff. Let's see if this compiles. So remember, this form here is the one for get. I should probably put in some text reminding us of that. And this one is for post. So it went to validate 1. Oh, we got an unauthorized. Okay, so Play has a number of security. I'm also getting warnings from my Chrome saying that's not a very secure password. Yeah, really? Play has a number of security features that are built into it. Now, what I'm going to do here real quickly, because I want to be able to wrap up this video, is to actually put in a command that's going to turn off the security here. Okay, now in some ways that's a horrible thing for us to do. So, but we need more time to discuss the proper way to do this. This is the thing that's causing it to not connect properly is what's called CSRF. It's to prevent cross-site attacks. And so normally we'd attach some extra data, like a unique key, to our post so that we know that it's coming from the right place, so that no one else is trying to spoof requests and get into our system that way. Now sometimes the CSRF stuff will get remembered and I have to like restart things, which I really don't want to do in this video, but I might have to stop the video and restart my web browser to get actually localhost /login1. Let's see if that's sufficient. If not, I'll stop the video, restart some stuff, and at the beginning of the next video show you us getting around this. Yeah, okay, so Play is going to fight with me on this. We'll talk about how I get around it when we start the next video.